5FM. You're right to know.
It's 6 o'clock. Good evening. Here's the news at 6 on Impact Business Radio, Ibr92.5FM. The headlines. Buhari seeks Senate approval for fuel subsidy raised to 4 trillion naira, says Nigeria will achieve maritime territory expansion without war. House of Representatives approves NYSC Trust Fund Establishment Bill. Federal government declares Friday, Monday public holidays for Easter celebration. And on the foreign scene, 5 confirmed deaths in South Africa's flood and mudslides. Now for news and details, I am Anu Akomola. President Muhammadu Buhari has written to the Senate to approve the adjustments to the 2022 fiscal framework. This is according to a letter of request read at plenary today by Senate President Ahmad Lawan. The President explained that an adjustment to the 2022 fiscal framework becomes imperative in view of the new developments in both the global and domestic economies. Buhari maintained that the move is due to the increase in the market price of crude oil, which is a fallout of the Russian-Ukraine war. In the letter, the President requested for upper chambers to approve an increase in the oil benchmark by $11 per barrel. The President noted that the total budget deficit is projected to increase from 965 billion naira to 7 trillion naira, representing 3.99% of GDP. According to him, the incremental deficit will be financed by new borrowings from the domestic market.
The decision to suspend the removal of petroleum motor spirit PMS subsidy at a time when high crude oil prices have elevated the subsidy cost. Provisions for the recent enhancement have elevated the subsidy cost has significantly eroded government revenues. I'll take that again. The decision to suspend the removal of petroleum motor spirit PMS subsidy at a time when high crude oil prices have elevated the subsidy cost has significantly eroded government revenues. There is also the need to make adequate provisions for the recent enhancements of allowances for officers and men of the Nigeria Police Force to boost their morale as they grapple with heightened security challenges in the country. Following these developments, it has become necessary to adjust the fiscal framework and accordingly amend the 2022 Appropriation Act to ensure its successful implementation.
The House of Representatives has passed the bill seeking to establish a National Youth Service Corps Trust Fund. This is as the bill today passed the third reading at plenary. In his remarks, a member of the House, Samuel Akinfolari, noted that the bill will provide a sustainable source of funds for the National Youth Service Corps, skill acquisition, training, and empowerment of corps members. Akinfolari maintained that the bill will also ensure the training and retraining of the personnel of the National Youth Service Corps, development of camps and NYSC formations and facilities. Meanwhile, a civil society group, Center for Social Justice, Equity and Transparency, has commended the House for passing the bill, even as it urged the Senate to toe the same path. Talking security, President Muhammadu Buhari has affirmed that Nigeria's bid to expand its maritime territory under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea is fully on course and will be achieved without war, litigation, or purchase. The President gave the assurance today in Abuja while receiving a progress report from the Presidential Committee on Nigeria's Extended Continental Shelf Project. Buhari also reaffirmed that Nigeria will continue to follow laid-down rules of the United Nations for additional maritime area under the recognized international convention. The President commended the committee on the progress made so far and the dedication invested in the work within a short time, assuring them of all the support to conclude the project in good time. Moving on to other stories, the federal government has declared Friday and Monday for 15th and 18th of April as public holidays to mark the celebration of Easter. In a statement today, the Minister of Interior, Rauf Aregbesola, urged Christians to emulate the attributes of sacrifice, togetherness, forgiveness and kindness, among others, as exemplified by Jesus Christ as they celebrate the holiday. Aregbesola also urged Nigerians, especially Christians, to pray for an end to the insecurity challenges bedeviling the country. The minister, however, assured that the federal government will leave no stone unturned to ensure that the recent attacks by terrorists on highways, airports and railway are brought to an end. He further called on Nigerians and foreigners residents in the country to display a high sense of citizenship and public spiritedness by supporting the efforts of security agencies in bringing peace and security of lives and properties of the citizenry. Talking education, the Academic Staff Union of Universities says there will be no resumption in public universities until the renegotiated 2009 agreement is signed, implemented, and the University Transparency and Accountability Solution deployed. Speaking with newsmen in Abuja, the chairman of the union in FCT, Salau Lawal, said members of the union are ready to return to their duty post as soon as their demands are met by the federal government. He also pleaded with Nigerians to join the union in rescuing the dying university system and reposition the nation's universities to a globally competitive level, which will be able to produce the manpower required to jumpstart the reemergence of a country driven by technology. Sequel to this, IBR's Johnson Oyebanji takes a look at the impact of the ongoing strike on the nation's economy and other matters rising.
The lingering crisis between the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, and the federal government has continued to threaten the nation's education sector. This is as parents, students, and stakeholders in the sector continues to lament the negative impact of the incessant strikes, warning that such can lead to collapse of the sector. Speaking on the state of education on a flagship program on Impact Africa Television, IATV, a professor from the University of Ibadan, Professor Rashid Aderemi, noted that all efforts of the committee set up to see to the agreement between the two parties has proved futile.
You know, the last time they set up the Museli Jibril committee, said he came up with a report, not signed by the committee, not signed by the federal government, and it's still with them. Again, they set up Nene Briggs committee again to look into the issue. And as of now, I doubt if there have been any meeting between the Nene Briggs committee and ASU and FAT, because Nene Briggs represents the federal government, and ASU has his own team. As of now, they have not been able to meet.
Aderemi maintained that students now engage in fraudulent activities such as Yahoo and rituals.
Today, you have young boys, young girls committing crimes. And imagine the boy of 14, 15, running after money and even killing boyfriend and girlfriend because of money. And you have the issue of Yahoo boys that are, when they talk of Yahoo, you mean people that are stealing through the internet. Because they have nothing doing, they are jobless and they are restless. So definitely the whole system, the whole environment is already criminalized.
He asked the federal and state government to divert funds being used for non-essential projects to the education sector.
The government may be saying that may be basing it on the adequacy of fund at its assets. That perhaps at the time they put it at what the ASU was asking for was around the trillion or whatever, this and that. And meanwhile, some funds that are being used for other things that are not essential are much more than that. Why don't we take part of it and settle the...
As it is known that education is the bedrock of the society, it is important to pay rapt attention to the development of the sector. Johnson Oyebanji, Impact Business Radio News.
Similarly, stakeholders have expressed a call for an alternative solution to the ongoing ASU industrial action. They made their views known after the Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, suggested picketing as the alternative to strike. Ayodele Fakeye completes the report.
The ongoing nationwide industrial action by the Academic Staff Union of Universities has for a certainty affected the students and the country's university system. The development has no doubt continued to generate several controversial statements from different quarters. One of such is that of the Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, who reportedly criticized the Education Ministry and suggested picketing as an alternative to strike, adding that picketing means staying at a corridor, clapping or singing, Reacting, the chairman of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, University of Ibadan chapter, Professor Ayola Akinwale said the statement only depicts government's indifferent attitude to the body's demands and the needs of the education sector.
I don't understand that if they want to turn this country to a country of clowns, perhaps that's what he's suggesting. It's a suggestion, but that suggestion does not show seriousness on the part of the person bringing that up. Are we clowns? He's saying that is an alternative to strike, for people to be clapping in the corridors of the Minister of Education. And let him lead the way. Let him, since he's so concerned about it, let him lead the way as the minister, as also a concerned parent, because he said his children are also in public university. Let parents like him gather to start clapping. Perhaps some other people will now join them. I mean, this is a minister that has all the chance in the world to get things resolved. And then it's a submission is a confirmation of how disconnected officials of this government are. A minister saying we should hold another minister responsible. So that means there is no signage. It shows Nigerians what ASU has been telling them, that the present government is paying lip service to most of the issues that affect the welfare of the working masses.
He nevertheless noted that the way out is for government to implement the renegotiated agreement.
Nothing to renegotiate. We've told Nigerians. It took us 4 years to get to this level. So if government is comfortable wasting the resources of this nation, let the people face them and hold them accountable for it. They get spent the government resources to put committees together to discuss with us for 4 years. And then the same government is saying they are pushing that one aside. We don't have time to waste with this government. There is nothing to renegotiate and understand our union is.
On their parts, some concerned citizens have expressed diverse opinions on the suggestions for an alternative to strike.
No, for us now, I don't think there's another alternative. The only language the federal government understands is strike. So I blame the federal government because they know the ASU, they are fighting for their rights, and the federal government they know the right thing to do. So this thing is like education is one of the important things in life now. So the federal government should try to give the ASU their own demand. So as the students are doing sitting at home, it's not good at all. So it's affecting me. I have about 2 brothers that got admission to university. They are still at home now.
There is no private institution that won't be any ASU strike, because all the big men in this country, even including the lecturers, they see the private institution as their alternative. So that is why they didn't mind about how long the ASU strike will be. Apart from what I explained just now, the only solution is all those lecturers, any lecturer that wants to work with federal government or want to work in federal institution, they shouldn't allow them to lecture in any private institution. Assuming that is going on, they won't mind because they have the plan B about the salary.
It has become important for all parties to resolve their disputes to find a long-lasting solution to the ongoing industrial action. Ayodele Fakeye, Impact Business Radio News.
Not leaving education, the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, has called on the federal government to focus on its sustainable development goals in isolation of children's rights. This is as the organization lamented that 70% of children in schools across Nigeria are not learning. Speaking in Kano on sustainable development goals and child rights, UNICEF's communications specialist Geoffrey Njoku acted on the need to give attention to foundational literacy and numeracy. According to him, sustainable development goals will remain a mirage until the rights of children are fulfilled. Njoku maintained that poverty and gender inequality must be bridged as they are essential ingredients to the denial of children's rights.
If we don't focus on children's rights, we are very, very, very unlikely to meet the SDGs come 2030. And then we are drilling down to education, foundational learning, and literacy and numeracy. The point we are trying to make is that children are not learning. Before we were talking about, even today, we talk about 10.5 million Nigerian children not being in school. But now the big issue is that those who are actually in school are not learning. 70% of them are not learning. 70% do not know what they should know at the age of 10. So we're trying to call attention on that fact, that it's going to be double jeopardy for us that we have a huge number of children who are not in school, and at the same time, those who are in school are not learning. The learning outcomes are extremely very poor.
Because education will help the child to develop his or her full potentials and also empower the child with a lot of opportunities to cope with the future. situation on ground now, that means that our children will not be employable because they didn't receive the quality of education that will make them relevant to the needs of the society. And when they cannot get employment, that means they will be rendered poor. And if they become poor, you know what that implies. There will be an increase in crime wave in the society. There will be increase in crime wave, and a lot of other children will be denied that opportunity. There will be intergenerational poverty because now these people cannot train their children. And because they cannot train their children, the children will also become poor because they don't have a job due to their own lack of education.
Away from that, as the cases of domestic violence continue to rise regardless of age, tribe, religion and social status, stakeholders have called on religious leaders and the family to take responsibility and sensitize their congregations on the dangers of the menace. They made a call in a chat with IBR's correspondent Taiwo Olariwaju. The report.
Domestic violence occurs across the world in various cultures and affects people across society at all levels of economic status. The menace, which can be attributed to unemployment and low income, have been shown to be risk factors for higher levels of domestic violence. However, cases of domestic violence have continued to rise regardless of the age, tribe, religion, or even social status. In a chat with Impa News Crew correspondent, a social analyst, Ogundeji Lukman, said domestic violence starts from different homes and society, adding that different factors have led to it.
Because we are going to rebrand ourselves from different homes. The problem is originated from the family. That is the reason why we have the community problem. That is the reason why we have the societal problem that we are encountering when you are talking about the domestic violence. That is why you see some people, the so-called the age bracket, that we will be using high drug this time around. When you look at the age bracket from the age of the 14 to 21, you see that you can see in our society this time around that those that are falling in that bracket, that they are the ones disturbing the peace of the nation. They are the ones that are causing the crisis in the community.
Ogundeji called on religious leaders to sensitize their congregations against domestic violence, even as he called on government at all levels and the family to take responsibility in order to end the menace.
Let's sensitize the religion. All the religious leaders should be preaching against this domestic violence in various churches and the mosques. That is the first one. The second one, each family, the head of the family, the both parents, the fathers and mother, they should try as much as possible to sensitize, to sit their children down, to let them know the what they call the disadvantages that we are deriving from this one. To let them know that if you are do this, that is wrong, you will land in so.
On Spark, another analyst, Ish Showale, said domestic violence committed against female is a bad vice in society which needs to be curbed. Showale also called for sensitization against domestic violence.
So even your behavior, when you are too aggressive, so there is almost 60 to 70% of causing issues at home when you don't know how to control your temper. If there is a way government can just set up all these courts, all the judicial court or domestic court, so they can eradicate it totally in the society.
In the meantime, Nigerians have called for the establishment of laws which will put an end to domestic violence. Common forms of violence against women are rape, acid attacks, molestation, beatings, and corporal punishment. Taiwo Olariwaju, Empire Business Radio News.
On today's edition of People's Forum, Nigerians have expressed their opinions on the recent declaration of a national leader of the APC, Bola Tinubu, and Vice President Yemi Osinbajo for the 2023 presidency. Speaking with Oluwa Damilola Akboluaje, some citizens anticipate the candidates of the party in the forthcoming presidential election.
Two of them are more than qualified to be the president of this country, to be the captain of the ship. None of them are ignorant of what is going on in the country. So, Mr. Vice President is on the seat already. And at the same time, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu is a man who knows everything in politics and is qualified to drive the ship of the country.
Over now to Oluwayemisi Okpeodu for business news for today.
Business. After 2 weeks of protest over the introduction of the vehicle identification number by customs officers, clearing agents have once again threatened to shut down the nation's seaport over the introduction of a 15% National Automatics Council (NAC) levy. It will be noted that the federal government had provided in the Finance Act 2020 for a reduction in the import levy on cars from 30% to 5%, while import duty on tractors is to drop from 35% to 5%, as well as reduction on imported duty on mass transit vehicles for the transaction of more than 10 persons and trucks from 35% to 10% respectively.
We are at the front of the long rule. I want to tell you, we don't really have problem with customs because they are agents of the government. That's why we are having problems with them. They are just to implement. But we want to tell the government, this policy is killing our people. They want to take us out of our jobs. We are not saying the information is not good, but the implementation is so bad. How do you have a Camry 2007 that will be paying 2 million naira duty? How much is the vehicle itself? As from now on, we are not going to resume work except the government list.
In another news, the federal government has revealed that 5,000 debtors are currently owing its ministries, departments and agencies, MDAs, a total sum of 5.2 trillion naira. To this end, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, has disclosed that 53 billion naira has so far been recovered from debtors owing its MDAs in the last 12 to 18 months. She gave an assurance that the Debt Recovery Unit will continue to provide the government with up-to-date records of its credit status by harmonizing debt records across all MDAs within the country. She added that a fully operational website has been developed to effectively manage public perceptions of the government's debt recovery efforts. That's all we have for you in the business segment for today. I am Oluwayemisi Okpeodu.
Thank you, Yemisi. Now to the editorial review for today. Olenes Ako is standing by.
The Punch newspaper editorial for today places its emphasis on putting an end to illegal recruitment and payroll crimes in the civil service. The paper quotes the head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Folashade Yemieson, as saying that the federal government has uncovered over 1,500 workers who joined the service with fake appointment letters. While speaking at the National Policy Dialogue on entrenching transparency in the public office recruitment in Nigeria, organized by the Independent Corruption Practices and Other Related Offences Commission (ICPC) in Abuja, Yemi Eson said those in charge of the Integrated Payroll and Personal Information System (IPPIS) who tampered with the payments platform will not be spared, as they will serve as deterrent to others. The paper therefore called on President Buhari to ensure that the mastermind behind the illegal activities are brought to justice. On its part, the Tribune newspaper editorial for today is focused on the NIN SIM debacle. It states that the federal government has ordered the telecom service providers in the country to deactivate lines which are yet to be linked to the national identification numbers. It notes that the process of registering for the national identification numbers and linking SIMs to the NIN is torturous. Although one of the official reasons being submitted for the SIM NIN linkage is to enable security agencies to be updated on the activities of criminals, the paper is of the opinion that there are shortcomings in using SIM NIN linkage to apprehend criminals. It urges the federal government to stop the practice of giving out deadlines for NIN SIM linkage and instead fashion a stress-free process of NIN registration. The paper concludes by emphasizing that the NIN SIM linkage ought to be an ongoing exercise since people acquire new SIM every day. My name is Ako Olines.
Thank Thank you, Olines. Now to the exciting world of sport, Isaiah Akinremi is standing by.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to the sports segment. A late equalizer from Canada denied Super Falcons a famous win as both teams settled for a 2-2 draw in the second of their two-legged friendly in Victoria. The first meeting between both teams on Saturday in Vancouver ended 2-0 in favor of the Olympic champions. The Falcons got off to a very good start as they took the lead in the 5th minute through Ifeoma Onumono, whose brilliant back-heeled effort from a set piece ended in the back of the net. Despite effort by the Canadians to draw level, the Falcons held on to go into the break 1-0 ahead. The hosts eventually found the equalizer on 49 minutes through Christian Sinclair, who lobbed the ball over Nadoze after Onome Ebi was robbed off a pass from the Falcons keeper. But in the 53rd minute, the Falcons were back in front thanks to Rashidat Ajibade. In the 88th minute, Canada's persistence eventually paid off as Shelina Zadowski's header from a cross beat the brilliant Nadoze to bring score to a 2-2 draw. After the game, head coach of the Super Falcons, Randy Wandrum, shared his thoughts on the two games against Canada.
It's huge for our team and obviously for our country to get a result against such a quality team. And you know, we all understand how the game went, and you know, they created a lot of opportunities, and I thought we fought really hard and stayed better collectively a little bit defensively maybe than.
The celebration tour is part of preparation for the forthcoming Women African Cup of Nations in Morocco. Away from that, Nigerian winger Alex Iwobi has won Everton Goal of the Month award for March. Iwobi's dramatic 99th-minute winner against the Magpies Newcastle United was voted as the number one for the month by Evertonians. The 25-year-old calmly slotted home after being played in by Dominic Calvert-Lewin to send Goodison Park into raptures and secure a vital 3 points for the 10-man Toffees. The former Arsenal star has scored 2 goals in 22 league appearances for the Merseyside this season. And lastly in sports, Ivory Coast Football Federation has decided against renewing the contract of national team coach Patrice Bemiol, whose original deal ended last week. The 43-year-old failed to lead the Elephants to the playoffs for the 2022 World Cup, with the West Africans then suffering a last 16 exit at the African Cup of Nations earlier this year. Two-time African champions Ivory Coast were beaten by Egypt on penalties following a goalless draw in Cameroon. After failing to progress from their World Cup qualifying group, Frenchman Bemiol accused World Governing Body FIFA of killing African football by only allowing 5 spots for the continent at the tournament. Bemiol, who was assistant to Hervé Renard when the Ivorians won the Nations Cup in 2015, had been in charge of the side since March 2020. He previously had a stint in charge of Zambia, having also served as Renard's assistant with the Chipolo Polo. That's all we have for you in the exciting world of sport. My name is Isaiah Akinremi.
Thank you, Isaiah. And on the forensic, at least 5 people have been confirmed dead in floods and mudslides across Durban in South Africa following heavy rains in recent days. In a statement, authorities revealed that the heavy rains flooded several areas and shut dozens of roads across the city. The spokesman for the Cooperative Governance Ministry decried that the city highways have been flooded, cars submerged, and houses collapsed. The spokesperson also urged the people to stay at home, even as he ordered the evacuation of those residing in low-lying areas. He further disclosed that rescue operations are underway to evacuate people in affected areas. To end the news, another look at the major items. Buhari seeks Senate approval for fuel subsidy raised to 4 trillion naira, says Nigeria will achieve maritime territory expansion without war. We also told you that federal government declares Friday, Monday public holidays for Easter celebration. And on the forensic, 5 confirmed dead in South Africa's floods and mudslides. For comments, breaking news, happenings around your area, and suggestions, send your report to newsroom at Ibr92.5FM.com. The news was produced and edited by Mary Ojo. I am Anu Akomolafe. Good evening and thanks for joining us.
News,
analysis,
reports,
and commentaries on the hour
in your business interest on IBR 92.5 FM.
You're right to know.
You're listening to Impact Business Radio 92.5 FM.
Radio.
Hello there.